Fixed gear bikes don't make sense. With only one gear and a lot of times no brakes, they can be very limiting over how fast, how far, and over what terrain you can ride your bike on. They are one of the dumbest bikes that exist, next to the penny farthing and pedalless bikes, and just like those, the fixed gear has its origins back in the 1800s. But not everything has to be the most optimized or make the most logical sense to be worthwhile and to make you happy. A lot of times when things are too optimized and too logical, they can lack what fixed gear bikes have, which is just dumb fun. What's up, I'm Zach. I've been riding fixed gear bikes exclusively for the past 14 years. That is crazy. There are now fixie kids that are as old as I've been riding fixies. And here's the 10 best reasons that you should consider riding a fixed gear. Alright, here's a quick primer for everybody that doesn't know what a fixed gear is. Rear wheel, directly connected to the cranks. If cranks are spinning, wheel is spinning, and vice versa. You can do things like pedal backwards, and the wheel will go backwards, and you can ride backwards, and you can backpedal, you can lock up the wheel, you can skid, and you can do all sorts of fun stuff. It's extremely connected and fun. The reason why a lot of fixed gear riders, such as myself, don't ride anything else but fixed gear is because there is nothing else like it. It is just straight up dumb fun to have that connected feeling with the bike. And a lot of people will think that it's a quote-unquote rubbish, if I'm to quote Bike Radar, to say that it feels like you can become one with the bike. But I genuinely believe that this is the most fun that I have, the most connected that I feel to a bike, because the cranks are directly connected to the rear wheel and vice versa, and it gives you an insane amount of control that just no other bike can give you. And that connection where the cranks are always turning with the rear wheel makes it feel super smooth and super satisfying for every pedal stroke. It's something that you're either going to love or hate, and the best thing that you can do if you're on the fence about fixed gears is just try one out for yourself, because chances are you're going to fall on one side of the fence of whether you love it or hate it. Fixed gear bikes have ruined cycling for me because I genuinely have no interest in riding any other type of bike, because this is just by far the most fun I've had on a bike. That's not to say that other types of riding aren't fun, it's just that they're fine. I have a good time on bikes with gears and bikes that can coast, but there's just something a little bit spicy and magical about a fixed gear that keeps me coming back, and that might be the case for you too. The way the fixed gear bike is set up, because it is so dumb and limiting, just forces you to focus on the experience of riding and the fun of riding, rather than chasing after stats and Strava achievements, which again is the most fun that I've had riding a bike. And every time I hop on a fixed gear, I feel like a kid again, where I'm just like flying down streets and down the trail, and where things like my average speed and my miles and my elevation gain or KOMs or personal records, none of that matters, because every pedal stroke is just a joy on a fixed gear. The gateway for a lot of people to get into fixed gear is that they are just straight up beautiful bikes because of how simple and clean they are. This is the most stripped back version of a bicycle that you can have, and it is the first version of the modern bicycle that has ever been made, and it has remained unchanged mostly for the past 100 years or so. There's just something about the simplicity and the clean lines of the fixed gear that people who aren't even into cycling can appreciate, just because there's a certain panache and magic to it that other bikes just don't really have. And that's how a lot of people get into fixed gear, because these things just look so sick. It's like the classic sports car of bikes. And it's like, yeah, they might not be the fastest in the world, they might not offer the best performance, but what they do offer is a lot of vibes. And for me, when I look at my bikes, because I find all of my bikes genuinely beautiful, it inspires me to ride just because they're so cool. They look like they're fun to ride, and when I do hop on my bikes, they are fun to ride, and it's always a good decision. Just having a beautiful bike to me, and the fixed gear is the most beautiful bike to me, inspires me to ride my bike. And then I can get all the other benefits of cycling, like fitness and speed and cardio, health, and probably a few years on top of my life expectancy, just because these things look so rad and they make me want to ride them. And that is something that I feel like is really underappreciated in cycling, is that you should have a bike that you genuinely love, because if you do love it, you're going to ride it more and experience more of the benefits and the joys of cycling. In the wise words of airplane designer Antoine Saint-Dupré, I butchered his name, I didn't take French in high school. Perfection is not achieved when there is nothing more to add, but when there is nothing left to take away. And there's absolutely nothing left to take away on a fixed gear bike. Everything is absolutely essential to make this thing go. And in my eyes, the fixed gear is just aesthetically the perfect bike. And apparently I'm not alone in that opinion. I've been aura farming whenever I go out and ride this bike. Somebody comes up and talks to me about my bike. Just one time in the same trip to REI that my friends and I went to, because one of my friend's tires just exploded completely on the ride. So we went to REI to get him a set of replacement tires. The employee at REI was like, "Oh, tell me about the level. What the heck is this?" And I told him the whole story about the Kirin NJS Japanese races and how this is made specifically for that. And he admitted that, oh, he is fixie curious, and this bike really piqued his interest. And then while walking out the door of the REI, a guy in his 60s came up to me and asked me, "Oh, what year is that bike? That looks like one of the bikes that I used to ride. It's beautiful." And I told him, like, "Oh, it's a 2012 blah 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 Japanese racing bike." And then we got connected just over how rad this bike is. It's something that non-cyclists can appreciate. It's something that people who aren't even into fixed gear can appreciate. They drip in vibes, okay? Because fixed gear bikes are so simple, they're also super easy to customize to the way exactly how you want it to look and exactly how you want it to ride, based on what your needs are. And that's one of the most fun things about fixed gear, is that they're just so dang customizable and simple to work on and approachable to work on. Like, this is my crazy fast NJS race bike, and it is not comfortable, but it is cool and it is fast, and that is all I want out of this bike. And I've even done some fun things like have the glitter grips, which really pop in the sun. I have custom wheels on this with the champagne colored spokes to really pop off of the frame set. And I have some floral straps and purple pedals just to make it really feel like my own. And that's the really special thing about fixed gear. If you want to, you can really customize every single detail of a fixed gear bike to really make it feel like your own and really make it feel special and to build your personal connection with your bike. And a lot of times you'll see fixed gear riders with really like wacky off the wall builds, like sticker bombed and colorful wheels. And that is one of the fun parts of fixed gear, is that you get to express yourself through your bike. And it's a bit of a meme in the fixed gear world where we don't remember people's names or faces, but we remember their bike. Like just the other day at VeloTrap, I was asking Andron where he got his new t-shirts printed, and he was like, "Oh, I got them printed with Mauricio. You can contact him. You know him, right?" I was like, "Engine 11?" He was like, "Yeah. Engine 11, that's the guy." Because for fixed gear riders, the bike isn't just a means of transportation. It can be if that's what you want out of your bike, but it's also a means of expression and communicating to the world what we value and what we like out of our bikes and what we like in our lives. Because so much of the fixed gear bike emphasizes the importance of the experience of biking and the lifestyle that surrounds cycling, rather than just the pure raw stats and performance of the bike itself. Even my wife Chloe recently bought not a fixed gear, but a single speed bike, like dorky cousin of the fixed gear, just because she wanted to have a bike that she could call her own and that she could customize. And that is the beautiful thing about fixed gear, is that they're so simple, so easy to customize, and so easy to get into. Fixed gear bikes are also super low maintenance. There's no cables a lot of times if you're not running any brakes. I do not run brakes. There's no derailleurs. There's no cable tension or housing. The standards are all pretty much the same, and they have not changed much at all since the 1800s. Heck, look, quill stem. What's the last modern bike you've seen with a quill stem? This is still a great standard, and I love it. And they're extremely low maintenance. There's just chainring, cog, linked together with a chain. That's all you need to make the bike go, and all you need to maintain it is to just clean off and re-lube the chain maybe once every 100 or 200 miles or so, and keep air in the tires. That's really it. So fixed gear bikes are really great if you don't like working on your bike and you prefer to spend more time riding your bike and just want as hassle-free of an experience as possible. They're really great winter commuters because there's not a lot of parts to get damaged or worn out when riding in the grit. They're great beaters because you could just throw them in the back of a car. I fly with my bikes all the time and I don't have to worry about my derailleur hanger getting bent or anything because there is no derailleur, or I don't have to worry about my gears being out of index or anything like that because there's just one gear. That's all I need. And I'm someone who really prefers to work on my bikes as little as possible because it's just something I don't really enjoy, and I also kind of suck at bike mechanics. And it's also a very non-intimidating way to learn bike maintenance because everything is so simple and you can see what everything does. If you're somebody that likes to ride your bike more than you like maintaining your bike, consider getting a fixed gear. Or single speed, fine. Single speeds too. I hinted at this earlier, but another thing I really like about fixed gear is that the standards don't really change. Like, the change from threaded to threadless is still a big deal for some people. And I personally am actually really liking the old school threaded headset. And they have pretty much all of them are going to have a regular old 68 millimeter English threaded bottom bracket, which has been tried and true for over a century. We're measuring time in centuries here, not decades or years or months, as fast as the bike industry likes to progress things. Like, that is how standardized and how figured out the bicycle has been. And honestly, biking with all of these older, that doesn't mean worse, standards, I have no desire to build up a modern bike. I only just recently learned about press fit bottom brackets and through axles and disc brakes and hydraulic brakes and all of this gobbledygook, and I also just recently learned that a lot of the bike industry was pioneering press fit bottom brackets for the past 15 years and are now going back to the threaded bottom bracket. Like, it's hilarious because fixed gear is such a niche type of riding that the high-tech stuff doesn't really trickle down to track bikes and fixed gear all that much. And so people tend to stick with the things that have worked. Ever since I started riding fixed gear, and for many decades before, all of the standards on a fixed gear have been the same. 27.2 seat post, 1-inch threaded, sometimes threadless, actually more times threadless nowadays, headset, standard bottom bracket, 120 millimeter rear spacing. Everything is very interchangeable pretty much across like 90+% of fixed gear bikes. The bike that I started off riding on in 2012, I could swap pretty much all of these parts onto that bike and vice versa. It makes it super easy to experiment with different components because the standards don't change, and it makes it a lot more economical because you can keep your parts for years and years knowing that you're still going to be able to use them down the line because people aren't really doing like silly proprietary stuff. Like, this chainring is 144 BCD. That has been the track standard for probably longer than your grandparents have been alive. And it's not changing. The bottom bracket's not changing. It's really beautiful when things are time tested and designed in a way that they're meant to last forever, rather than chasing the next biggest trend for marginal gains that make things less user-friendly. Everything here, super user-friendly. All my tools still work from ever since I started riding 14 years ago. All of my parts can be changed to another bike and between this bike and my other bikes. It's been figured out over the past 140 plus years. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. I'm going to record this part showing you guys my buff-ass legs. It has become somewhat of a meme in my friend group that my legs are buff and toned, and like I put models. It's a shame with my nice legs because everyone skips leg day. And riding a fixed gear will definitely make you stronger. There's no gear to bail you out. You can't just shift to another gear if you're going up a steeper hill. You're committed, okay? If you want to go up that hill, you gotta pedal harder and you gotta sweat and grunt your way up of that mountain. And there's the idea in fixed gear and single speed riding that you have to shift with your legs. You want to go up a hill, you push harder. You want to go down a hill, you better be able to keep up because there's no coasting on this thing. But it also makes you stronger in a way that is tangible, that you can really feel. Because last year I just moved to a part of Sacramento where there's actually some hills nearby, where the rest of Sacramento is totally like flat as a pancake. And I'm not very good at hills. And so there's a ride from here in Rancho Cordova up to Folsom, and I forgot exactly. There's a few hundred feet of elevation gain, maybe actually 1,000 feet or so, going both ways. And I remember it being very hard when I was riding it back in January. So before I had to take like 2 breaks maybe going up the hill to Folsom, and then eventually I only had to take 1 break. And now I don't have to take any breaks at all, and it feels relatively easy for me to get up the hill. And of course, with any bike, you're going to get fitter if you just ride consistently. But on a fixed gear bike, of course, also a single speed, you can be welcome to the party, 2 single speeders. It's in a way that it's really tangible. And when you get stronger, when you hit those milestones, it actually feels like a huge achievement, because something that you could not physically do before, you can now do on the same bike, on the same road, with everything else being the same. The only thing that changes is you. You're the one who gets stronger, and you're the one who earned those results. It's also cheaper to get a nice riding bike. Obviously, this is not a good example of that. Fixed gears don't have to be this expensive. I don't even know how much this costs, and I'm afraid to calculate how much this costs. But I started riding fixed gear on a $280 shipped Motu Bicane Trek from Bikes Direct. And things are probably considerably more expensive than 15 years ago. But the fact remains that because there's less parts on a fixed gear, more quality can go into each part, into making the bike ride as nicely and as smoothly and as reliably as possible. You can even convert old road bikes from like the 70s and 80s and 90s into fixed gear bikes with pretty minimal parts. And a lot of those bikes are being totally slept on. A lot of them are like really masterfully crafted. Like you can get a super high quality built by a master like Colnago for a few $100, convert that to a fixed gear, and you will have one of the nicest riding bikes ever for under $1,000. It's crazy. Or if you just want something super cheap, it can be pretty doable to get a complete fixed gear if you like shop around at bike co-ops for like $100 to $200 easily, and it'll be nice riding and reliable and fun and inspiring. Because the rest of the bike industry has moved away from those old standards, from those old road bikes, but that is a plus for fixed gear because that means nobody really wants them. So you can get some really nice bikes for cheap because the standards haven't changed on this thing in over 100 years. So all of the fixed gear parts still work on those old road bikes, whereas the rest of the cycling industry has gone on to newer standards, which in my opinion are worse. The cycling industry has forgotten about these nice bikes because they're not the most bougie, marketable, most expensive material, but rather they're just like really nicely, masterfully crafted, a lot of times, steel bikes, which are really being underappreciated now. So you can get a killer conversion fixed gear or even just a complete fixed gear new for easily for under $1,000 and easily for like a few $100s. And if you want to get your own killer complete fixed gear, this video is sponsored by Wabi Cycles. They really understand what makes fixed gear great. And so you can customize pretty much everything about your bike, from the color to the handlebar type to your gear ratio and your stem length, to really dial in the fit and the ride quality of your bike right out of the box. They're made out of high quality Reynolds 725 and Columbus Spirit tubing, which emphasizes the ride characteristics of how smooth it is to pedal a fixed gear bike. And they plane in a way, which is a fancy word that describes the way a bike flexes to synchronize with the way you pedal, where it feels like it gently encourages you to keep on riding. And if that sounds interesting to you, consider checking out wabicycles.com. They're not going to be the fastest things in the world because of terrain varying, and gear ratios are helpful if you want to be as fast as possible, but they are still plenty fast. Like when I am riding my Level NJS, I feel like I am flying on an arrow. It is crazy. When I'm up to speed on this thing, I am like maintaining speed around like 20 to 22 miles an hour. It is kind of nuts how fast a bicycle can go just on human power alone. And that is part of what makes fixed gears fun, is because they're so simple and efficient that they can be really fast if you want them to be. And especially if you are into track riding, yeah, those guys can go to like 30, 40 miles an hour on a fixed gear. Needless to say, getting my first fixed gear was a big upgrade from the mountain bike that was 3 sizes too small when I first got into fixed gear. For most people in most riding, 1 gear is enough. And if you don't think 1 gear is enough, 1 gear will make you stronger to the point that it is enough. And it's not super hilly here, but I've lived in hillier places. I've lived in Chiang Mai, Thailand, which has a big mountain next to it, and I rode that mountain probably like twice a week, all the way up to the top where there's like a little town, and I rode it on fixed gear. I've also lived in Mexico City, which is surrounded by hills. Rode it on a fixed gear. I've lived in Taiwan for almost 2 years, which is extremely mountainous. Rode it all on a fixed gear. And you would be surprised once you get into the mindset of shifting with your legs and becoming a stronger rider rather than shifting gears, how much ground you can cover and the kinds of terrain that you could ride over. I ride up mountains, I ride off-road up steep hills. Like, especially if you can learn to embrace the spin to win mindset, where you spin a lower gear ratio faster, you can cover a lot of ground and have a lot of control over your bike and really push the limits of your bike and yourself and see how much 1 gear can do for you. It's also very easy to make friends in fixed gear because it is such a niche thing. Fixed gear riders will constantly be like talking to each other out in public about our bikes and just chatting about cycling and why we love fixed gear so much, because it's such a niche thing. But if it's something you understand, you just get like inducted automatically into the cult, and it becomes like a secret society where you start seeing fixed gear riders out on your rides and just want to connect with them, or they might want to connect with you. Fixed gear is niche. If you get it, you get it. Fixed gear riding also really emphasizes just having good vibes over anything else. Vibes with the bikes, vibes on the rides, vibes with your friends, and it makes it really easy to make friends. And as long as I've gone to like a major city in the world, I've been able to find fixed gear riders and have been able to connect with them and sometimes become really good friends with them. Even when I went and lived in Michigan, not exactly the fixed gear mecca of the world, I was still able to put together a weekly group ride where we had like 8 to 10 fixed gear riders come out every single week to just hang out and vibe out, loving on each other's bikes and loving the medium of fixed gear. I made really good friends in Mexico City, and I've made 2 of my best friends through fixed gear riding. I made my friend Min in high school, who is still one of my best friends to this day through fixed gear riding. And I met my friend Hao Xiang, who is the owner of Faith Gear in Taiwan through fixed gear riding, and we have been friends ever since 2017 when I bought a fixed gear bike from a shop, and he saw how freaking fast I can ride, and also he later realized that he's watched my videos. But just last year, he was the photographer for my wedding, and I go back to Taiwan every year and we hang out. For what fixed gear lacks in the quantity of riders, it definitely makes up for the quality of riders, and I found it to be like a very chill and welcoming space where there's just a lot of good vibes going around and a lot of friends to be made. And that has been one of the most life-changing things about fixed gear for me.